Ellen Troxclair, and I am honored to be a part of the State Leadership Council for the Policy Circle here in Texas. And so you guys are all familiar with the Policy Circle. It's just such a wonderful group that I was introduced to several years ago. I served on the Austin City Council as the youngest woman ever and the only conservative there for several years. And so I constantly had women coming to me, and saying, Ellen, I want to know how I don't agree with what's going on in our city. I want to know how to get involved, but I don't know where to start. And I was loath to tell them, well, why don't you come and sit through 12 hours of a council meeting and sign up to speak and get 3 minutes on a council agenda and speak at 2 a.m. on an issue that they've already well made up their mind about. So it was so great for me to find the Policy Circle and find a community of women who were really just engaged in helping to support and inform each other, and ultimately, a group that's there to make a difference. So the State Leadership Council, my role there is to just help everybody or help the Policy Circle grow here in Texas and help set programming and grow membership. And it's part of my passion. Once I stepped off my role on the Austin City Council 3 years ago, I didn't know what was next for me. I ended up writing a book called Step Up: How to Advocate Like a Woman, and this organization is certainly right in line with that. And I guess I now have to practice what I preach. I just announced a few weeks ago that I am running for the Texas State Senate. So it is a new challenge and a new adventure, and I would appreciate your prayers and prayers and good luck. So enough about me. Let's talk about Peggy. Again, I've known Peggy for years, and she is one of the most impressive people I know. She's worked in government and in and around politics, both in the public and the private sector, for over 35 years. She is a native Texan, but she actually spent 13 years in Washington, D.C. She worked for one of my heroes, Ronald Reagan, and later for the president as a White House liaison for the Departments of Education and Interior. She actually headed up the Take Pride in America campaign and directed the 1984 Republican National Convention. So that's just the amount of the wealth of knowledge and information that she has is truly amazing. And currently she is the director of the appointments office for Governor Greg Abbott. So she holds a very important role in appointing boards and commissions all across our state. And that is what we are here to talk about and learn about today. So welcome, Peggy. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here to speak to this group. And am I muted?
Nope, sorry. I think it was me on my end. Go ahead.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you for what you do. You've made a big difference in Austin and in Texas. And I'm looking forward to seeing even greater things that Ellen Troxclair is going to be doing.
Well, thank you. So I want to just kick this off by getting to know you a little bit better. I would love to know how I want to know how you got into politics in the first place.
That's a great question. We all come to it from different perspectives when we get involved in politics. I just started volunteering when I was actually in college, just volunteering for campaigns. I ended up, I'm very old, so I ended up actually getting a job and working for Gerald Ford on his campaign, and stayed in Texas, came back down here and went to work, and then saw an opportunity to help then our former Governor Reagan, and went to work on the Reagan campaign here, then went up to Washington, and always thinking I'd just be there 2 years. But it doesn't work like that in Washington. You end up getting greater opportunities. So I was happy to be able to take some really significant roles in the Reagan administration. I think the most important part of it is that people are policy. And I had the opportunity at the Department of Education and at Interior, two of the largest federal agencies, to be able to staff them with the political appointees. And to me, that was exciting and significant to see the people that were willing to really put their lives on hold and go to Washington to work for the administration. It's a great opportunity, but for people established in a career, it's also a risky move to take. But as again, people truly are the policy. I will say that when I used to work for Ronald Reagan, I would always ask the question, you know, what did you do for the president? And many of them, especially in education, they'd say, oh my goodness, we could not get involved in the campaign. That would just ruin my career in education. So I would just say, well, basically, so you're asking the president to take a risk on you that you were not willing to take for him. So I think it's really significant that people need to realize that if you're going to make a difference, you have to be all in and be willing to take some risks. There's nothing gained if you don't.
That is a good point.
So the truth is, I've never really looked for a job. They've always kind of fallen in my lap. I went to Washington saying I'll be here 2 years, and I kept getting other opportunities. I never applied to go to work on the RNC or to run the campaign. I mean, the convention, that fell in my lap. It was kind of a you can't say no type situation. One of the best jobs I ever held. I didn't actually go looking for the job I have right now, but got a call and they offered it to me, and I thought, oh, I love what I'm doing, you know. But it was something I couldn't turn down. The opportunity to work for this governor in a role that I think is so significant. And I'd love to talk a little bit about what I do and how many appointments he makes.
Yeah, please do. Let's jump right in.
Thank you. You know, the governor in Texas has the bully pulpit and has the appointment authority. He can call sessions. There are certain things he can do, but it really, I think, is a role that he considers one of his most significant roles is to be able to make appointments. Because I like to say Texas is truly run by volunteers. There are boards and commissions that our state agencies answer to. And these are appointed boards that the governor appoints to. Some are 2-year terms, some 4, some 6-year terms. Some are required to be confirmed by the state Senate, others are not. So it runs the gamut. But this governor's made over 3,000 appointments. And again, these are not, some of them are to university boards where they, you know, have fiscal responsibility, judiciary responsibilities for enormous budgets. Others are regulatory. They really run the gamut. Anything the state does, there's a board that oversees it practically. So it's a great opportunity to meet people, but moreover, to find the right talent and where they might best serve. I like to say that the busiest and most successful people in our state walk through our doors and offer themselves for public service. The sad thing is more of those are men than are women. So I'm extremely excited to speak to the policy circle because we're always looking for women who are eager and willing to serve. Right now, about 40-something% of our appointees are women. We are constantly, and let me tell you how my office works. I consider myself an appointment manager. There are 6 of us in my office that have different portfolios. We take all of the boards and commissions that the governor appoints to. We've divided those up. I take those that he maybe has most specific interest in and some of the bigger boards, but we all make recommendations to the governor. He makes every single one of those appointments. In some other states, the appointments office may make appointments for the advisory boards, or the governor just makes appointments, decisions for the major boards. But in this state, our governor looks at every single application that we take him as a recommendation, and he makes the decision. For instance, we met yesterday with the governor. He's got lots going on and lots on his plate. But anytime I ask for a meeting, I say, we're ready to bring you some more boards. He welcomes us. So we go over, I think we did 33 boards and over 100 and something people yesterday. And he is decisive. He makes decisions. Some he'll say, I want to hold on this. I want to get some additional information. Sometimes he will have some people that he wants to give us because we want those folks. Who does he want to appoint to these? But they're always productive, and it's really invigorating and exciting to see that he is involved in every single aspect of these appointments. And of course, he's a busy guy. Right now, we're wondering, are we going to be able to get our Senate confirmed appointees confirmed this whole session? So lots is going on, lots of questions. It's easy during a special session. We know how that works. During a called session, especially one where some of the members are walking out, don't have quorums, that's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
So it's always something different.
I hadn't thought about that angle, but certainly, and I see the Senate floor on the TV behind you, so that I know you are keeping up with everything that is going on, and the Senate seems to be continuing the work. It seems to me like the House members are the ones who have kind of flown off and aren't planning on coming back. But there's a lot. It's not just it's not just about whether or not we should allow elections at or people to cast a ballot at 3 a.m. It's also about, there's a lot of other state business that is going on during this time that they're not here to take votes on. So I'm very hopeful that they will decide to come back and move the state forward. But while you were speaking, one of the things that occurred to me is, of course, we often think that running for office is a way to get involved, but running for office is not. I want it to be for more women, and of course, that's my passion, is kind of talking to women and helping them get the tools and resources that they need to run for office. But maybe they're not in a place in their life where that is doable. Maybe they need something that's less of a time commitment. Maybe they want to get their feet wet, or just feel like they want to get more information before they make that decision. And so talk to us about the breadth and kind of the different time commitments that the boards make, because some of them are part-time, some of them are full-time. And one thing that I was so surprised by when I started learning more about boards and commissions is that, say, for example, the dental board or something like that oversees a profession. Well, you think, I'm not a dentist, I don't know anything about dentistry, that's not something that I want to do. But actually, a lot by state statute, there are positions on all of these boards that specifically require you to not be in the business, because you don't want to be overseen. There could be some conflicts of interest there. So you want members of the general public who are willing to volunteer for a position, but maybe not be licensed experts. They can't be licensed experts in some of these cases. So just kind of talk to us about the diversity of the different roles.
Well, you make a good point. For instance, I'll use the medical board as an example. Much like the dental board, there are public members on there. So not just they're specifically written into the legislation. So we always look at the enabling legislation. That's what creates a board. And we just had a number of boards created this last session. So we've added those to our database, assigned those, and we've actually started making appointments on boards that were just created. And the governor signed the legislation, end of May, early June. And we've already made appointments to some of those boards. Some of them we completely fill the boards. So I guess one of the questions that you had asked, the time commitment. Mm-hmm. It's hard to say because every board is so different. For the medical board, I'll get back to that. They meet regularly, and frankly, they review patients' complaints about doctors. Mm-hmm. And it's extremely important to the medical profession. And yet some doctors are on the board, but we also need public members. I can remember when my now son-in-law, who at the time was someone that Amanda was dating, my daughter, when he was I encouraged him to apply for the student regent for his university. And he said, oh, I don't know that I'd ever be picked. I said, well, you won't if you don't apply. That's the first step. You won't get selected if you don't apply. He applied, and I called the woman who sat in my seat at that time and said, not trying to tell you you need to appoint him, just know that he would serve well, and he would serve the governor's best interest, a different governor then. Well, sure enough, he gets appointed, and I called her and I just said, oh, I thank you so much. He's thrilled. He's going to be really excited, and he'll do a good job. And she said, well, that was an easy one. You don't have to thank me. He was the only one who applied. Now they're much more competitive. More students know that they can apply for a student regent position. But after that, he was then given an offer to serve on, I think, some dental board. And he called me and said, why would I want to do this? And I said, well, number one, we are all patients. We go to dentists. We want to make sure that they have the consumer and the patient's best interest at heart. So we need people like you on boards like that. And I said, and number two, you really, once you serve, you have greater opportunity to serve in more significant roles. So sure enough, he did serve. He was successful in, frankly, helping eliminate that board. It was one that was one of the review boards, and that got eliminated, and they were about to offer him a position on a more significant board when it was announced that I'd be coming on board. So nepotism, we couldn't appoint him. By then he had married my daughter. Now, gratefully, they're giving me grandchildren, so I'm cheering them on. But I know that when you were on city council, you appointed him also to a city council board.
That's right. That's right. I mean,
really
that's good. That's, I mean, I know that we're here to talk about kind of more state boards and commissions, but it is a good to note that your city and your county commission also have similar boards and commissions. So at the city level, you know, some of the most important boards and commissions that I appointed were planning and zoning, that they reviewed, you know, cases where people were wanting exceptions for certain things. There were boards, you know, that were kind of more just there for, you know, the zero waste recycling board that was really more there to virtue signal. They only met a couple times a year. But then there were other boards that, you know, met every 2 weeks, and they made final decisions, like the Board of Adjustments. They made final, which Chris was my appointee to. He made final decisions on kind of appeals that people were bringing to the city. So there are some very important roles both at the city and at the state level. You guys, of course, have many more boards and many more roles to fill, and they are overseeing state, you know, positions and things like that. But yeah, there's such a plethora, and that was one of my biggest challenges too, was just getting people to apply. So
Right.
I think sometimes as women we think, well, you know, I don't have the right qualifications, or I don't have the right experience, or and often it's we do have men kind of think, well, I could do that. I could be, you know, I could be very good at that. And it's much harder if you talk to women about it, and their initial comment is, well, you know, I don't know much about that issue, or I don't know. And I feel like we both probably have the shared message of, you don't need any specific qualifications or criteria or degree or anything else. Like we really just need people to step up, and it's putting in that initial application, hopefully getting appointed to something that maybe allows you to get your feet wet and then get further and further into whatever it is that really interests you.
Ellen, you're so right. You wrote the book on it, literally. but women do need to step up. And I will share with you that on our application, we ask what other boards they've served on. And it's helpful for us to see that they have served on other boards, whether they be at their city or county level, or on the school board committees, or certainly there are board appointments at the local, state, and federal levels that more women need to be aware of and apply for. Because I will tell you that we will more likely be looking for women to appoint than men. Men
Right.
You're right. They always seem to think that they got experience. A lot of them do, but we're looking for women, always looking for women to appoint.
And also women from across the state. I know one of the times that I came in to meet in your office and learn more about the appointments process, there were often you were looking, you don't want people who just live in Austin, you want people who represent geographically diverse regions of Texas, right?
We're constantly looking for diversity geographically, ethnically, and gender diversity. We look at a board, and the governor does not want to appoint an all-white board of all men. Let me just assure you, if I took that to the governor, he would send me back. He would say no. So we look for a mix. We always make sure he is aware of the diversity on a board, and that's important. We want boards to look like Texas. Sometimes it is written into legislation, and some boards are highly what we call slotted. It will say that this must be an individual from this county if it's a river authority, or there are just different, so many different boards with different responsibilities, and often we're looking for what we call a unicorn. We're looking for a woman in Fayette County who lives on this lake. I mean, it can be that specific.
Really?
But
Wow.
it is. It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, because generally, unlike the new boards, we don't get to put the puzzle together all at once. Often we're looking at a board where maybe 3 people's terms are expiring on a 9-member board. So we have to look at, well, who is on the board, where are they from, what do we need to replace and to build on the success of that board. And sometimes we need someone who is a financial, wizard. We need a CPA, or we need someone who can do audits. Sometimes we're looking for expertise along with geographic and other diversity. So it's a challenge, but it's always interesting.
Okay. Well, I just found the link to the application online, and I don't know if that went to everybody or just the policy circle, but they can send that out, because you find it, it's like a 4-page application. You can kind of look through, and you can use that website to look at all of the boards that are available and help you guys narrow down what you might be interested in, because there's so many, so that's I know that's a question that you always ask is, well, what is it particularly that you are interested in or would want to serve on. And so putting that kind of down in your application is really helpful. And just to underscore, there are things that are that meet, a couple times a year to a couple times a month. So depending on what, you can also find that on the website is, here's the time that I have available, and you want to look at boards that maybe are less or more, whatever it is. But the bottom line is you can't get appointed if you don't apply. And so it's amazing that that's such a big part of your job, because I think for more normal people, you think, ooh, a gubernatorial appointee, like that is so fancy, and it is. But unfortunately, we just don't have enough people applying. So, hopefully that is a call to action for everybody who is on the call today to take a look at that link, and consider applying. Okay, we do have a couple of questions coming in. So let's see. I'll start with, I do see one about the Democrat legislators leaving the state, and I think that's a hot topic that is very timely that we'll get to. But since we're kind of finishing, let's follow up on the conversation about appointments specifically, and then we can kind of open it up a little bit more broadly. So somebody says, our company is headquartered in Austin, and I have a question. I'd like to encourage our CEO to serve on a state board or commission. How best to start the process?
I always say it starts with an application. People can call me, and I welcome that, but I can't advise them very well if I don't know much about them. So the application is very simple. It's actually 6 pages. Much of it is just checking a box. We ask a lot of questions. People don't need to say what specific board they want to serve on. Some people will say, I'm interested in education and in regulatory issues or something. So if they give us a broader view of what their interests are, or will say, I'm willing to serve where the governor needs me. The governor's very appreciative of folks that are just willing to say, put me where you need me and where I best fit, so to speak. So the first step, of course, is filling out that application. When the application comes in, it is sent to managers that they said they want on specific boards. It goes to the managers that work those boards, but it also goes into our database. So if I'm looking for someone from Amarillo who is a civil engineer, I will go to my database and look for that. And I will tell you, we sometimes the look is that specific. So the first step is simply putting your name in the hat, so to speak, filling out that application and sending it to us.
Okay. And so another practical follow-up question on that, we've talked about people not applying and we need more people to apply. And so somebody says, if people aren't applying, how are the positions filled? Are they recruited?
Well, we have a database of over 5,000 people, I'm sure. Right now, who knows? I'm not even sure the number in our database now. I will tell you that some people are, if they're serving on a board and serving well, sometimes they'll be reappointed. So it's not really an open position. The governor may say, I like the way what he's doing at this board or commission, or I want her to be reappointed. So it's not always an open positions that we're looking for. But we will also go out and make phone calls. We will go out and speak to groups. We will encourage people to apply. So building our database is really important to us. Our database is used only for appointments. Please know that there's a very firm wall between us and any campaign or political activities. This is just for the state. Unlike at the federal level where they truly do have political appointments, we do not here. But the biggest part of it is people applying. And I also welcome people giving me a call and asking questions about boards. And we can share that information with them, give them a better idea of what might be the best fit for them.
So you kind of start with your database. If you have a position that's coming available, if there's specific criteria, you can filter it based on that, based on location or based on occupation. But if you're not finding the right person, you make phone calls and say, hey, do you know anybody, to people you know and trust, and say, hey, do you know anybody who would be good for this? Or you do things like this, talking to people about the process, kind of demystifying it, making it easily accessible, telling them the how-tos and the next steps, and growing your database so that they're in there. So the next time that something comes available, those people are already in there.
Absolutely.
Because it could be a long process or a short process. There could be something that comes up immediately that you really need to fill, or it could be, you put your application in and there's something specifically that you're interested in and there's not an opening right now, but maybe in 3 years or whatever. Of course, you're subject to the terms of the governor's governorship or the governor's election, but it might not be an immediate turnaround, right?
So true. I do think managing expectations is one of our challenges here. People may get frustrated and anxious that they put in an application, but they haven't been appointed. Unless it's something like a court position, because the governor also appoints if a judge retires or, heaven forbid, dies in office, then the governor makes appointments even for court positions. There are new court positions that are created every session. So unlike those where there's one slot, one kind of a bite at that apple, most of them are, they're cyclical, and we will have people rolling off every 2 years of boards. So there are opportunities there. But when people aren't immediately appointed to something, doesn't mean we're not interested in appointing them. It could be just there's not an opening on the Finance Commission or on that specific board for another 2 years, maybe.
Yeah. So somebody said, Peggy said we can call her. Can you share your contact information? So I don't know if you feel able to do that, but I do have your email address here that I will share, and I'm sure I can find your phone number in your.
I'm happy to give it out. As a matter of fact, I have to look at it because I don't always read it off, but if this is the number that rings on my desk, it is a 512 463-6895. And people can call me.
I have just been amazed at how accessible you have been. So yes, I've thank you for
My job.
doing
I
that.
consider it part of my job. As a matter of fact, when the governor brought on a new senior team, he said, I have two charges for you: follow the law and provide good customer service. And what more could a governor ask for than that? So absolutely, we're accessible.
That's amazing. Okay, well, y'all drop in any other questions that you have about the appointments process into the chat. But since we've kind of gotten to the end of the questions that I have so far, let's circle back. So how does the Democrat legislators leaving the state affect the governance of the state?
Well, certainly both chambers have quorum requirements. So it takes 21 senators to be able to gavel in and do business out of the 31. It takes 21. So right now I'm focused not on the House and not on all the issues that the governor has put in front of the legislature, but I'm focused on I try to stay in my lane, and that is appointments. So for us to be able to get our appointees confirmed, there'll need to be 21 senators here. And that means that we will need a Democrat or two. So I think it's important to note that the business of the state can be grind to a halt. Certainly they can't pass legislation if either house isn't able to make a quorum. So yeah, it's a serious situation. It's not the first time it has happened. It's not the only state this happens in. But I believe people are elected to serve, and the voters spoke. They sent these folks to Austin to do their business, and it's a shame that some are willing to just pick up and leave because they don't think that they have the votes to get done what they want to do.
Yeah, this is extremely frustrating for me personally, because as the only conservative on the very liberal Austin City Council, I lost a lot of votes. Like there were plenty of times where I was not in the majority, and I still showed up. And it was sorry.
You never walked.
Yeah, and exactly. And by the way, I had two children while I was on council. So of course, while I was on maternity leave, I couldn't be there, but I had two small children at home, and I still showed up for those very late meetings. And I didn't have any parliamentary procedures, that we do not have. The House has and the Senate, but the House in particular, since that's kind of the chamber that has left so far, they have other parliamentary procedures available to the minority. They can call points of order on legislation that they don't like and effectively kill it that way. They can chub a bill or continue talking on it. This is kind of similar to a filibuster that they have at the federal level, so they can continue talking on a bill until time runs out. So they have a lot of parliamentary tools that they can use to maintain their agenda, even as the minority. I didn't have any of those things available to me at the city level. That was just more of a free-for-all. And so it's extremely frustrating as someone who has been in that position. And yeah, of course, you don't get what you want all the time, but that is the nature of our democracy, is that we vote for people to represent us. And if they really, I'll get on my little political soapbox. I just don't understand. There's a lot of things on this agenda. I know you are solely focused on the appointments process, but there are a lot of things on the agenda. There's our teachers are expecting a 13th paycheck. So teachers all across our state have a 13th paycheck that is basically in jeopardy right now because the House does not have a quorum. There are property tax issues. Property taxes are very close to my heart. There has been some money that was going to be set aside for property tax relief across the state that, again, is not going to be able to be passed because the Democrats have decided to go to DC. And it's costing taxpayers money. They boarded a private plane. I'm sure, I don't know if you've seen the case of beer that they brought with them on the party bus to get to their private plane to get to DC. And they've said that they're going to stay up there for 30 days. So even if the plane was chartered and paid for privately, it's still costing taxpayers money, because you see the the senators behind you and the staff that is at the Capitol working, all of those people are still are still going to be paid. But that actually, that brings up another question. Are they going, part of the budget is still left undone or vetoed, and they're not going to be here to reinstate that budget. So there are so many things on the agenda that aren't going to be able to be passed. And one interesting thing that I think, why not they're making a big deal about the voting elections, and this is kind of the bill that they're taking the stand on. But the information about what's actually in that bill is very sparse. I mean, even when I try to Google, what is this elections bill? And you find out that the state of Texas already has very comprehensive places and times to vote. We have 2 weeks of early voting, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And they're even more liberal than the state of Delaware, where President Biden is from. So, if they're really interested in taking a stand, why don't they go to other states who don't even have what Texas has? My mother always told me that nothing good happens after midnight, and I was expected to be home well before that. And so a bill that would potentially allow people to cast a ballot at 3 a.m., that's not voting accessibility. I mean, that's just reasonable. That's just reasonable. So I'm very disappointed that they have decided to take off. But thank you for letting me co-opt a little bit of your time here, Peggy, to get on my soapbox.
It's important. We can't do work if they're not here.
No, they can't. And that's, again, what they were elected to do. So what recourse, we have another press question coming in on this topic. What recourse does the average taxpayer and the governor have to hold these negligent legislators accountable?
Well, of course, the governor's announced that he's going to arrest them, and that can happen. They actually voted that can happen. Whether or not the governor does it, I don't know. It would not be the first time that a Texas governor has arrested legislators and brought them back to do business. It's not the first time Democrats have made a run, so to speak.
Right.
So we'll see. I don't really know what's going to transpire. A lot of question marks for all of us here, but we'll see.
Yeah. And I can't imagine you're just kind of waiting it out. A lot is up in the air right now. But I just want to underscore the fact that the ability for the governor to do that is actually in the House rules that were adopted unanimously by both Republicans and Democrats in the House. At the beginning of the session, they adopted House rules that said you are expected to show up and to cast your votes. And if you do not show up and you break quorum, then the governor has the explicit authority to make sure to bring you back. And so these are rules that they themselves adopted with the expectation that they were going to show up to work. So that's, we will see how that plays out. Peggy, does that I've heard some people say that doesn't apply if they're not in Texas. Have you heard that, or do you know? I
think years ago when Democrats went to either New Mexico or Oklahoma, they were arrested and brought back. So I'm not, but the truth is I'm not the expert on that.
Right.
Okay. But the bottom line is they're not here. Their constituents are not being well served. Most Texans definitely want voter ID. They want things that are in this legislation. So it's really disappointing. Hopefully they will come back and get the work done that they were elected to do.
Right. Yep. I agree. I think we want to make it easy to vote and hard to cheat. Easy to vote, hard to cheat. And I think that's all this bill is trying to do. So I think it's unfortunate that it has turned into, they're basically just fundraising off of it. If you go on Twitter, they're just constantly posting their links to fundraise for the Democratic caucus. So it seems like more of a political stunt. And the unfortunate thing is they've said that they're going to stay out the entire 30 days. So the special session, the governor has the ability to call a special session for a duration of 30 days and then say what will be on the call for that special session. So 30 days is a long time. We're only like a week into that 30 days.
But the governor can call additional special sessions.
Yes.
And the sad thing is at the end of a special session, whatever they have or have not done, it goes away. They have to start all over again.
All over.
So back when Rick Perry appointed, 5 special sessions during one interim, they had to start over again each time. The governor, I think, was pretty explicit, and he even gave bill numbers that he would like to see brought up again. So the bills are there, but they have to start all over again with the hearings and the votes and sending it to each chamber and conference committee if necessary. So it's a lot to get done in 30 days, but we only meet every other year for 140 days.
Right.
So special sessions are not unusual.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the fact that he can continue to call the special session, I mean, he's going to, my guess is, and of course I don't speak for him, but my guess is that he's going to continue to call special sessions until they return to work. So it's really just a big waste of everybody's time and our money. And so that's extremely frustrating.
He actually has said that he will continue to call special sessions.
Okay. Well, yeah,
that said that. We'll see how this works out.
That's good to know. Yes. So a question is, who is financing the Democrats to flee? I will take that one because I don't want to put Peggy on the spot there. I don't know for sure. I have heard that it is some gaming interests. So it's, PACs and families who are involved in the gaming industry have kind of paid for chartered the planes to get to DC. And I'm assuming are paying for their lodging while they're out there. So even if that direct transportation wasn't taxpayer funded, this is still costing taxpayers money, because especially every time we call a special session, the legislators who are showing up to their jobs get per diem. The staff members are expected to work. So it's, and their budgets are bigger. Their budgets are bigger during a legislative session as well than in the interim. So there are a lot of unfortunate consequences to this decision. So we'll see how it ultimately plays out for them, but very exciting and timely. I'm excited to get the chance to kind of talk to you about it, because it's not usual, or it's a happy circumstance that we would get to have such an inside look to what is going on at the state level and the governor's kind of frame of thinking. And we're so grateful for you holding down the fort, there while the rest of us are just waiting to see what's going to happen.
Well, but as you point out, the Senate is in session now. They've held hearings. The House has locked their chamber doors, so the House is not. Sadly, there's an opportunity in the House for them to actually lock the doors with everyone in it and not allow members to leave. And we'll see if they come back, if that is something that they have to resort to. Hopefully not.
So Peggy, do you know if the Democrats on the Senate side, I know that I spotted several of them in committee hearings yesterday. So it does not appear to me that the Senate Democrats have left or that they're planning to leave. Do you know? I mean, again, they can't do it. You have to pass bills in both chambers, so it has the same effect. But I know the House Democrats have been making a big deal about making a big splash. But the Senate Democrats, are they there, or are they?
They're not all here, is my understanding.
Okay. So enough to you guys have a quorum and they are meeting, but
I think the concern is that there'll be a lot of pressure by their party put on them to walk. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that inside look. That is kind of the end of our questions. And I feel like we've covered a lot of ground of why it's so important to have good people serving on boards and commissions across our state. I hope that our conversation with Peggy has encouraged many of you to kind of take that next step. And I'll give a little plug to my book as well. If you guys at the Policy Circle don't mind sharing that link. After I got off council, I wrote a book specifically on, why we need more women to step up and get involved. And I talk about the process, the appointments process in that book as one way to do that. So if anybody is just frustrated and fed up and kind of looking for a roadmap of why your voice matters and how to use it most effectively, I invite you to check out that book on Amazon, and hopefully that will give you some good inspiration. And of course, I'm running for Texas Senate in District 24. So you can find, and that is a district that is currently held by a very impressive Republican woman, but she is going on to higher office. She is running for land commissioner. So Senator Dawn Buckingham is running for land commissioner, which is a statewide office, and she will be leaving that Senate seat open. So there, oh, I was trying to drop my campaign website into the chat. If anybody wants to kind of look me up or follow me there, you can find me on social media at Ellen Troxclair. And hopefully this time, you know, next year, I'll be the Republican nominee for that seat. And of course, I would appreciate your encouragement and support. So Judy, is there anything else that we need to cover on this topic, or should we just say thank you so much to everybody who has joined us today? Thank you especially to Peggy. Thank you for the work that you do for our state. And I hope that you have some new applications soon from those of us who joined us on our call.
I do too. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Ellen, thanks for all that you have done. The governor thinks the world of you. And we would love to see you in the Senate and be able to work with you. So thank you for all you do for women and for our state.
Thank you, Peggy. All right, go team.
Yep. Great job, Peggy, Ellen, great job. I didn't have to do anything. Easiest day of my life. So thank you for infusing knowledge on all of us. And any last parting words, Ellen, Peggy? You good?
Oh, one last parting thing is that if there are people on this call who aren't in Texas, the process is likely very similar in your state. And Peggy also mentioned that she has regular contact with people who are in her same position in other states. So, you know, please, most of what we've talked about today is also applicable in places outside of Texas, but you should just move to Texas because it's pretty great here.
I love it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right.
ladies.
Thank you,
Thanks from
ladies.
Illinois.
We'll see you next time.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.